Thank you very much for having us here. I wanted to take the opportunity to say hi to everybody. Say thanks to Be Original for organizing these fellowships that are allowing us to get in touch with you all who in the end are going to be the future of design. My name is Dayane Abajos, and I'm the North American sales manager for Marset. I've been part of the Marset family for the past 6.5 years, and it's a complete honor for me to be here and be able to share with you all who we are, how we work, and what is it that we have to bring into the design world. With me today, it's going to be my colleague Clément Gojol. He joined us 1.5 years ago, and he's currently the Northeast Regional Sales Manager. And he and I are going to be walking you through the presentation. The presentation is going to be structured in a way in which we're going to be talking about the history of the company, who we are, our factory in the outskirts of Barcelona, where are we located throughout the world, how did we establish in the US, and then we are going to go deeper into the design process of the Deeping collection, which is the fixture that you are right now seeing on the image. And then we're actually also going to center of the design process of a lot of older collections. We're going to talk about the use of materials, the functionality, the importance of functionality in the collections. And then at the end, we're going to have a sneak peek of the outdoor collection that we were supposed to present at Frankfurt, but then got canceled. And then also a lot of pictures of installation images of projects we've been doing throughout the country. So let me start with a little bit of a history of Marset. Marset is a family-owned company from Barcelona. It was founded in the 1970s, and it was in the mid-90s when the third generation of the family took over and decided to focus the strategy of the company in the design as the main core to develop the company and the success in the world. And it was in the mid-90s and throughout those years that the brand Marset started gaining recognition as high and innovative design. Marset is not only about manufacturing lamps, it's about actually bringing products to the world that will remain as statement pieces. It's about evoking emotions. It's about the entire design process and the materials used on it. We want to thrill, we want to create emotions with our products. We collaborate with designers from all over the world in order to bring diversity and color into our collection. But we do also keep a very core, long-standing design team in the factory that is continuously developing new products. We're in continuous conversations with the designer community, with the clients, with the people that are part of the Marset family in order to continue bringing in innovation, innovative products and quality products into the world. I thought that the best way I could think of introducing you all to the Marset world and the Marset atmosphere would be by taking you to our brand new factory. We love doing that. We love hosting people into our showrooms. I'm actually currently in our New York showroom. So I would love to have you all here so you can get immersed in the Marset atmosphere. But for now, we're going to have to wait a little bit. But in the meantime, I thought it would be very interesting to play a video in which it's a series that we did. It's called Reflections on Light. And in this particular case, we are interviewing our product director, Joan Gaspar, and he's going to talk a little bit about the design processes that he follows, as well as what he considers good design. The interview is in Catalan language, but there's going to be English subtitles in the bottom. Hope you enjoy it.
En realitat vol dir pensar, estructurar, escollir, perquè al final tots els productes, tot el que tu veus que t'està envoltant és d'aquella manera però hagués pogut ser d'una altra. quan veus qualsevol objecte, tu potser no et preguntes de què està fet o no, de què no està fet, però molta sensació que et transmet aquell producte, molt és per la tècnica amb la qual s'ha utilitzat per fer-lo. Llavors, el que és interessant és que tu amb la tècnica siguis capaç de produir emoció. A mi m'agrada que la llum que rep la pròpia làmpara deixi veure coses interessants del propi producte i de la seva construcció, que apagada es decori, però que no sigui tampoc massa estrident, i que quan estigui encesa tingui aquesta segona vida que, ostres, que maco això, no? La nit ha de ser la nit. Això d'intentar substituir la llum del dia a la nit és una bestiesa. Jo soc molt impacient. Quan decidim fer un producte, llavors després es fa un prototip, fins que tu no estàs veient això, hi ha moltes coses, tu te les imagines tu, moltes vegades les transmets a l'equip, però en realitat el qui està veient allò acabat, el qui més ho està veient ets tu, i fins que no ho veus i et fas, diguéssim, sí, és el que jo volia, aquest moment és bastant... crea impaciència. Què veig quan veig una làmpara que he dissenyat jo? Satisfacció. Si està bé i ha quedat bé, molta satisfacció. Quan algú està ben fet, m'agrada molt emfatitzar-ho, encara que no sigui nostre o meu.
All right, so let's dig a little deeper in where does all this magic happen. And this is in our brand new 11,000 square meter factory in the outskirts of Barcelona, which currently sits along with our showrooms in Milan and at the Design Post in Cologne, Barcelona, and New York City. We love hosting people, as I mentioned, and that's why we decided to actually move into a bigger space, because we kept growing. We needed bigger production capabilities. The design team kept growing. The sales team kept growing. So that's why we moved into this facility last year. This project, this architecture and interior design project, was accomplished by Stefano Colli, who has designed all of our spaces, actually. The idea here was to create a space that would combine a workplace and also a showroom. And you can see that throughout the space, the Marset lights are the main theme. And something that I like to highlight about them is that the versatility that the fixtures have. It made it possible to actually use them throughout the entire factory, offices, storages, factory, production, assembly, everything with the entire collection without actually having to depend on any more architectural lighting solutions. And that kind of says a lot about the diversity of the products. We wanted to design a space that would help create a place that would also help participate, coordinate creation. And that's what it was accomplished. We actually collaborated with other brands that share the main core values as Marset does, which are design, quality, innovation, sustainability, technological rigor. And that's how we actually were able to create a very, very unique, authentic place. This is the showroom in the factory in Barcelona, which has the entire collection on display. And this is the current geographical distribution of where are we located. So as I mentioned, we have a factory and showrooms in Barcelona. Then we have actually a living apartment in Milan that actually we made it a showroom. It's a full display of the collection in an apartment at the Brera neighborhood in Milan. And then we have the Design Post in Cologne and now the New York City showroom. So I'm going to focus a little bit now on what Marset USA is. We decided throughout the years, Marset was able to develop distribution throughout the country. And it was in 2011 when we decided to land ourselves here with our own team and with our own showroom. So the first years were hard, but we had a mission, which was share with the North American people, the clients, the designers, the general public, what we had to offer. And it was by knocking on the doors of the most prestigious design and architectural firms, learning the local distribution, learning what were the regulations, learning what the market needed, that little by little we were able to spread the word. And most importantly, we wanted to help designers, once they knew who we were, use our products into their projects. And that was accomplished by the creation of a very well-designed, design-oriented website that has not only a great imaging, but also all the files that designers would need in order to accomplish their projects and to send their submittals. And also most recently by the creation of our e-commerce, just in order to actually bring our products closer to the general public with a taste for high-end design. All right, before I take any longer, I'm gonna let my colleague Clement share with you the design process of one of our most recent successful collections, which is the dipping lights that I have here in the showroom. And then he's going to also introduce the industrial designer behind the idea. So I let it to you, Clement.
Thank you, Diane, for this introduction. And since I'm just starting to talk to you, thank you for joining us today. It's really exciting for us to get to talk to the future of our industry because in our day-to-day work life, it's something we seldom get to do. So thank you for taking the time to attend. So when we decided to join this virtual fellowship, we were sort of brainstorming on what do we have to bring to you and how can we make it interesting and worth your time? And so we quickly decided the Dipping Light collection by Jordi Canudas was a great collection to show you because it is one of our newest collections. And also it is one that was really well received throughout the industry and got really a lot of attention. And also it exemplified really the way Marset works when we start to design a collection working together with outside designers. So looks like I'm not able to control the slide. So Diana, do you mind? Thank you. Sorry about this technical issue. So the designer behind the Dipping Light collection is Jordi Canudas. He's a young Spanish designer who actually got an MA in product design at the Royal College of Arts in London. So he got this training that is both Spanish from his background, but also spending years in London. After graduating, he actually spent a few years in London before moving back to Barcelona, where he opened his studio in 2011. And I think one thing that says a lot about the way he works is that Jordi actually defines himself as an artist before defining himself as a product designer. And so I think that shows in his design process and his ideas. And here is a quick interview of Jordi during Euroluce last year, where we were presenting the Dipping collection.
The story of this lamp is that I started self-producing a light bulb that was being dipped into paint. And at one point, Marset said, okay, do you want to do it with us? So I was very happy to kind of go back to design. The one we presented last year, it was only the table versions. And this year, with wall lamps and pendant lamps, we also did the wall version with batteries. So now it can be taken away. You have the light bulb, and then you need to shade it somehow. So my ambition was to have the paint being the lampshade. I tested it, and then the paint I got, it was not opaque enough. So I added another layer, and then this gradient feature appeared. No, like it wasn't something intended.
So So as you can see, this is really an original idea, and he sort of stumbled upon it by trying things out. He actually started playing with this idea back in 2014, so already 6 years ago now, when he did his first experimentation first with a light bulb and then moving on to a globe glass. Here you can see on the left side, those 3 green lights are actually the first that he produced himself in his studio, and he designed those for restaurants in Barcelona. And then on the right, you see him meticulously checking on the process of dipping the light into the paint to control how much light paint goes over the globe, and sort of how much light will be released into outside. Here is another example of his early work with the dipping light, and you can see here he's been experimenting with dipping multiple times. The amber color that you see in the forefront shows up to almost 12 layers, and you see this really subtle gradient that goes from a light yellow to a deep red. So he was working on his own, and then doing some installations like this, and then Marset started talking with him and approached him to sort of see if we could bring this idea to a wider audience and sort of make it a little bit more industrialized process while still keeping the original artisanal idea. Sorry. So what we did, and this is something that was very important to Marset, is that we left Jordi in charge of the design process, because we want the product to have integrity, but also reflect who he is as an artist and a product designer. What we bring on our end, and I think that's what is really important in the design process, is we're able to sort of streamline the process, but also provide some more information on making it a product that will work with end clients. So we, for instance, suggested slightly larger bases to provide more stability, or using a thicker glass so that it's less fragile. Here you can see the dipping process in our factory. So we have a lot of globes hanging downwards, and then with a machine, we're able to dip them into the paint multiple times, taking them out, letting them dry, and then going back into the paint. One of my colleagues was visiting the factory with some designers from LA back last year, and their main takeaway was that, I mean, some of them wanted to quit their day job to become globe dippers at the Marset factory, because they just liked the process and described it as a really soothing process. And so the first collaboration with Marset is in 2018 during Light and Building, which is the largest lighting show in Europe. We introduced the dipping light table lamps in 2 sizes that you can see here. The taller one is up to 20-inch in height, so it's a really large fixture, and it was really well received. Shortly after, we introduced it in New York during ICFF, which is our big design fair in the US, and Interior Design Magazine gave it its Best of Year award in its category. So immediately there was recognition of this collection. So the full range of this collection, it's a copper base with 6 different colors that you can see here. And what is really interesting with this is if you switch those lights off, the shade looks completely different, because you won't see the gradient. So it's really playful, and there's always an element of surprise if you turn the light off or if you turn it on. And as the reception that we got was really enthusiastic, we started thinking about expanding the collection, and I'll let Diane walk you through this.
Thank you, Clément. So before I forget, if you all have any questions you want to ask us, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A box, and we'll actually have 15 minutes to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. So as Clement were saying, we're in constant conversations with designers. Every time we go to a trade show, we are showing our products. The feedback was so incredible, and everybody kept saying, you know, I see so many different applications for this product. And of course, it was in the mind of Jordi Canudas and the engineering team within the company to develop further applications for the collection. So this is the result. We came out with pendant versions of the fixture, and also the wall sconces in two different applications, a smaller size or a medium size between the two initial table lamps that we offered, and also the battery operated fixture, which is, as Jordi Canudas mentioned, you can take it everywhere, especially for bar tops where you cannot use any candles or don't have any plugs. It's definitely very convenient. And then we basically just apply this same expansion of collections throughout all the products. And then we created the cluster accessories, which allowed to create waterfalls of dip-ins. You can play with the different heights, you can play with the different diameters, with the different positions, just need one single point of light. And these are great to be installed, for example, in lobby spaces, in staircases. And in this case, we're applying the same application to the ginger family, which is the picture that you're currently seeing in the center of the presentation. And then this will allow us to get into how we consider our products, as I mentioned, with all the different applications in our factory, how we are able to light up different corners, regardless of whether we're talking about hospitality projects, corporate projects, retail. We have solutions for it, and I'll let Clement explain it.
Thank you, Danny. So this is really something that for us is very important in the design process. Very often, and I think most people, when you ask someone, can you define good design, will focus on the aesthetics. And it is definitely a really important part and large thing to focus on. But for us, good design is not just great aesthetics, it's also functionality. And so this is something that we try to do throughout our collections, try to find new applications for an idea. And so we wanted to share with you the Ginger collection, which was designed in 2016 by Joan Gaspar, which you saw in the first video. So this is a collection where we've done a lot of research to manufacture those shades together with Joan, where the shade is made of pressed paper, resin, and veneer. And this allows us to have a really strong material that we're able to curve and get that sort of really slightly curved shade. So we were playing with this, and we were using this material to reflect the light. So it's indirect lighting, as you can see here. And we are using it as pendants, but also wall sconces or ceiling mounts, also portable version, table version. So we always think, okay, we have this great idea. How can we expand it and make it something else that will bring function and design to people? And after a few years, we also decided to introduce new materials because we were always trying to refine and expand our collection. And so last year during Luce, we introduced metal shades that allows for the light to bounce slightly differently. It's a little more texture to it. So it's really brought a whole new depth to this collection. And I think that is really interesting because material is something that is to the heart of who Marset is. It is in our DNA. As Dana mentioned, when Marset started, we were manufacturing metal pieces. And so we've kept this in our head, and we like to work with material. And it's always front and center when we start designing a new collection. And what we like to do is find new ways of using a material or trying to find another material that allows us to create and bring up bring out products that are very different and surprising. So the Bohemia by Joan Gaspar, again, is a great example where, so glass is probably lighting 101. It's the most commonly used material when it comes to shades, but it has some constraint, mainly weight. It's fragile, it breaks easily, it's hard to transport. And so we wanted to come up with this really large blown glass fixture, but obviously for a lot of reasons it was not possible. And so we did a lot of research, and we decided to use rotomolded polycarbonate, which allows us to have the illusion of blown glass, as you can see here on the pictures, where there's really the same transparency that you would get from a glass fixture, but a much lighter and easier to work with. When I say easier, though, it doesn't mean that's an easy process. It took years of research to sort of come up with this process, which had not been done before. So what we do is we actually have 2 layers inside this shade. The exterior layer, which is the glass aspect of it, which is colored, but also has some sort of transparency. So we have to play with the amount of pigment we put in there. And then the inside is a white layer that will allow us to reflect the light and provide great lighting. So again, it's this marriage between functionality and design. So trying to not concede on any side. Another great example, I think, of how we were playing with new materials, trying to find new use, is the djembe collection, where here the idea was we wanted to have an outside of the shade that has a lot of texture that reminds you of terracotta stone, but also we still wanted this great streamlined light that allows both for residential applications and also, as you can see here, office applications. So it's the same idea, different material. Here it's rotomolded polyethylene that allows us to have this textured shade on the outside, which you can see on the left here, and then a really smooth white inside that bounces off the light. And also these materials allow us to have really large fixtures, like the one you can see here, the djembe 100, which is 1 meter in diameter. So because those products are so light that we're able to manufacture this. And then another type of material that we're using that maybe is more traditional, here's with the pleat box collection, it's ceramic. So here it's a really artisanal approach. The shades and the canopies, because they're in the same material, are actually all handmade in a small atelier in Barcelona by a ceramicist. And so here, this is a different iteration of the djembe. So we have this textured exterior and a really smooth interior that will reflect the light. A lot of the time we will see we're using indirect lighting because it's a lot softer. So these are 3, I think, great examples on how we play with different materials.
And of course, the use of materials and the play with dimensions, are the main course of the design processes. But at the same time, and as important as it is to play with dimensions and colors and materials, is to think about the functionality. We want to create pieces that are beautiful by themselves when they are turned off, and they become permanent fixtures in the user's life. But at the same time, we want to provide solutions that stand off in any room. And here I have a few examples of like clear functionality in a fixture. For example, the LED tube. It's now 10 years old, and it's one of the main like functional fixtures that we have within the collection, one of our most popular fixtures for hospitality use. It can be integrated in any headboard, in a wall. It can be, the tube is actually integrated within the box of the fixture, and you just pull it up. You can rotate the light of the angle of the light won't actually bother anybody else in the bed. And we realized that there was room for improvement. So that's why we came up with the LED tube mini, which is the same quality of the light, the same proportions, it's just in a different size. And then we also brought up the LED tube USB. So just, we are continuously thinking about ways to improve our products. And talking about the experience of the user, we brought out the bolita. Bolita is just, it's a fixture, it's a product that will want it to be touched. It requires the interaction of the user. The design is actually quite simple, I would consider. When we introduced it in Milan, everybody was just astonished because you would think that there's actually like a lot of technology involved in the design of the product, but actually how the dimming that you're seeing in the video right now happens, it's by an eclipse process. Basically, we are moving the ellipse, the glass ball that is on top of the base, and that's covering the LED, and that's what actually it's causing the light to dim. So just that simplicity and that like organic look of the fixture, it was just like very innovative, and we love that. We actually absolutely loved this collaboration that we did for the bolita. Another example of this functionality is the Milana. The main idea of this fixture was to be able to move the light. You know, you want to service, especially for hospitality projects or restaurants where the setup of the tables is continuously changing. We developed the Milana, which is actually like, it's paradoxically simple. We went down to a cylinder with an LED integrated on it, and then the ability to install different shades, different cone shapes, shades on it. But then just by incorporating a little counterweight on it, you're able to move the light. So you are offering a very user-friendly product. So that's the Milana collection. And then we also came up with some accessory bars that would actually can be used with a lot of our other fixtures, because we want to make people's life easier. So that's why we came with the accessory bar. And then I mentioned that we're going to give you a quick sneak peek of what are the outdoor collections that we were going to launch in Frankfurt, that will be launching in the next show whenever we're actually able to go to a show. So Clement will walk you through all these new pieces.
Thank you. So yes, outdoor for us, it's really important, and that's something that we've always had in mind when launching new collections. And we've always had a fairly large part of our collection dedicated to outdoor lighting. It's very important for many reasons to us, and probably one of the main reasons being that we're a company that was born on the shores of the Mediterranean, and so outdoor living is part of who we are. You are outdoor a great deal of the year, great time of the year, and so you need to have access to great lighting. And that's also something that we did realize, is that there's sometimes not that much options when it comes to great decorative outdoor lighting. And so we want to bring our expertise in doing that indoor to the outdoor. So I'll show you a few examples of collections that we currently have, and then show you what we have in the works for you all to use. So the first one that you can see here is La Flaca. So La Flaca it's a great collection designed by Christophe Mathieu. The idea is using a folding screen that allows to partition the space with light. It comes in 3 different sizes, and you can move it around. It's a really thin textiline fabric that is the shade, and so you have this transparency that lets the light shine through it. And also, one major element to consider when designing outdoor lighting is you need to think about functionality again. It needs to be weather resistant. It needs to not fall over when you have wind. So this is always things that we have in mind, and that the La Flaca achieves. You can also bolt down those fixtures, and they're also quite weight. The weight is on the lower part of the fixture. So here another example of an application. Another collection that we reintroduced in Milan last year is the TXL 2019. 2019 because we already had a TXL in our collection, but we decided to reimagine it and bring it, modernize the fixture with a much more unstructured shade that is a little less rigid than the one we had before, and also that using that same textiline fabric that lets the line shine through it and also move slightly in the wind. A few other collections were that we launched last year at Euroluce is the rock, and then you'll see later the plafond. So here we did something that we had never done before. So we actually designed a single base to house the lamping. So what goes over the junction box is a really simple circle with an LED inside. And then the way we differentiate the rock from the plafond is actually by the shade itself. Here you have like a glass shade with some texture that allows for the light to shine through with a little element of texture. And then the plafond has a different shade that will allow for the light to glow onto the wall behind it and also forward, and allow us also to have the signage. And then, as Diana mentioned, we took the really radical step this year to decide that we would only introduce outdoor collection. And we were supposed to show this in Frankfurt at Light and Building, which unfortunately was canceled. But here are a few pictures. And so it's a mix of completely brand new products and also bringing to the outdoors existing collections that we have that we know have been successful and would work great in the outdoor, like the ginger that you have here on these pictures. So we're trying to really differentiate ourselves with great product, but also always keeping in mind this duo functionality and aesthetics that I think is at the core of who we are. We're going to move soon to the Q&A section. So if you have questions, please do not forget to submit them so we can answer them for you. And maybe Diana can just show you a few examples of the projects we've worked on before we answer your questions.
Yeah, we're gonna just wanted to share with you some project images that we have. They're all available in the website and in our social media. But just so you get an idea of the atmosphere, the ambience that we want to create with our products, here are the latest installation images that we have in both hotels, in office spaces, outdoor installations of the Haima and the Santorini collection. We have the ginger in different residential applications, or Santorini fully outdoor rated fixtures. The djembe over a dining table that it kind of reflects the texture of the fixture itself. More deep in pendants, bohemia in hospitality, restaurant applications, bars, different applications for wall sconces, play with wood in the ginger collection, the Milana that I just recently talked about it, more restaurant applications, the pleat box. And this hopefully will give you an idea of how you could use the products in your projects, or how we work, who we are, what is it that we are looking for when designing a product. And yeah, this is what Marset is. And I hope you all, I really appreciate your time here, and I appreciate the curiosity to learn about us. So thank you very much. And I guess we can all move to the Q&A now.
Great, thank you guys. If you wanna stop the screen share, that way we can bring both of you up full screen for the students. Students, again, we're gonna move on to Q&A, so definitely submit your questions. You can find that function either at the bottom or top of the screen, just depending on the device that you're using to tune in today. What would you say is the biggest challenge when designing lighting?
Let's see. I'm not a designer myself, so I guess designers, or the industrial designers we usually collaborate with, are very creative people. So they are continuously seeing new forms, new materials that could work with, new functionalities that they could, new needs that they could probably fulfill. But at the same time, the world is full of products. So you need to make sure that you're I guess they don't want to create superfluous products. They want to create something that is going to be a statement piece that will remain on the user's life. At the same time, they want to offer something that it's, after the design process, you actually need to engineer and technologically achieve the image that you're looking for. So I think this would be mainly the main worries that Marset finds whenever it's looking to collaborate with designers, right? Some designers do not have the engineering capability to put in a product, in a prototype, all the ideas that they have. So I think that would be my...
Yeah, and I think I would add on our end, that's where we bring our expertise. So we have the creative side and we have a more rational side, if you want, where we're able to sort of see what needs to be done to sort of streamline the process while keeping the integrity of the design of the designer and the artist behind the product. So we want to be able to carry this idea and yet make it a product that we're able to make available for a larger audience. So this is like a really thin line that we have to walk, because this is the integrity of the design is really at the center of what we do, yet there are some constraints that the designers might not have thought of. And so that's where I think we as a manufacturer can bring our expertise. And I think that's really something that is to the core of the design process. You can think of everything, but then it's our work to sort of bring it back down a little bit to make it something viable for the future.
Right. What are some of the biggest differences you've noticed entering the US market compared to your experience being founded in European markets?
I'm happy to start answering this. So I think the largest difference is the certification. So lighting, as opposed to maybe furniture, is a much more technical product. I worked, before joining Marset, I worked for Moroso, so I have this more furniture-focused experience. And there definitely was a big learning curve for me, because, I mean, a lighting product has a lot of regulations to follow. In the US, we get all of our products UL certified. So this is a set of certification that is completely different than the CE certification that is required in Europe. And just to name a few differences without going into too much detail, for instance, and that's something that we've been struggling with sometimes with design, is in Europe, you're allowed to have a remote driver, whereas in the US, it has to be enclosed in a box. So it's like slight differences that always explain why it takes so much longer to launch our products in the US. So for instance, the products that we presented at Euroluce last year, so 2019, are only arriving in the US market this year because of this sometimes re-engineering, because the drivers are slightly larger or smaller. So we need to rethink a lot of the product while still keeping this integrity of the design. So that's, I think, the main challenge.
Yeah, I think over the years, I joined Marset in 2014, and I also moved to the US in 2014. So it was an immersion experience for me as well. Like, I remember at the time, we did not offer that many integrated LED fixtures. Also, the technology just keeps advancing so fast, and we kept sending the feedback to Barcelona. You know, this is what designers are telling us. This is what everything needed to be dimmable. More the classic incandescent retrofit light bulbs. Also in Europe, little by little, that was changing as well, but here it was more advanced, as well as the distribution. People in Europe, or in the markets at least where we had a little bit more experienced, are usually, they're very used to going into a store to buy the lights. Even hotels sometimes just go through stores to buy their lighting packages. Whereas in the US, it was a completely different distribution channel. E-commerce was like, all the online retailers were like a very, very important part of the market distribution. So it was for sure a learning process that I think we can say that more or less we're getting a grasp of it. And also, I think speaking English helped. As a European company, definitely we needed to learn about the culture of the design community that we were trying to expose ourselves to. So it was a learning process.
Yes, there's definitely a cultural difference. And growing up in Europe and when coming to New York 10 years ago, it's also something I experienced. I think both Europeans and Americans have this idea that we're one Western culture, and there's actually so much difference, and that's also a learning curve for. And I think Dana and I, being Europeans working in the US, I think it's a good asset because we sort of understand both cultures, and sometimes our job is to be the bridge between those two cultures.
Right, absolutely. You've both touched on a little bit your career paths, but could you tell us a little bit more about what that journey in the design industry has looked like, how you got started?
So myself, I went to law school, and then I did an MBA in Madrid. And I was sent to the Middle East to try to help Spanish companies invest in foreign countries. And then as part of this last program was to actually work for a Spanish company that was investing somewhere else. And that's how I came across Marset. I actually saw the job opportunity, and I happened to live in front of the only store in my hometown that sold Marset. So I walked into the store, and the woman was very nice, and she gave me a catalog. And I was like, well, I have an interview with Marset, so I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about it, because at the end of the day, I was gonna have to present the company in front of the owner of the company and the US sales manager at the time. So I learned the entire catalog. I fell in love with the products, the videos. They had amazing videos, and I really felt that I had something to offer. And that's how I actually came into the design industry. And since then, it's very nice. And as I've been exposed to more design companies in the US and how they land in this market. And I'm very, very happy that I got this opportunity from Marset, because it's a company that stands by its values, core values, which, as I mentioned, are sustainability, great design, technological rigor, and integrity. It's a very integral company within the design community.
Yeah, and for me, I went to business school and studied marketing, and then my first job was a marketing job in Germany for a car company. So it's quite far from where I landed. And then when I arrived in New York, I sort of became friends with people working in this industry and got the opportunity to work with a really young company representing smaller manufacturers from Italy. And then from there, I moved to Moroso, which is a furniture company, and Marset afterwards. And I think one of the reasons why I sort of stuck to this industry was I find it so much nicer to work and represent products that you believe in, that actually, when I walk in the showroom, and I have not done that in a while, but just like seeing products that I actually like and that I would like to have in my home, I think it just makes more sense. And I like this. I like this aspect of it. And actually, the funny thing about Marset is that I was redoing my apartment in New York and was looking for a reading light way before I was looking for a new job. And the only reading light that made sense to me was the Marset LED tube. And so I got in touch with Diana and purchased two that I'm now using as my reading lights in New York. And so I think that's why this industry is so great, is that you're able to surround yourself with smart people and learn every day and surround yourself with beautiful products.
Absolutely. With the design shows being canceled, how is Marset launching new collections?
I mean, we're currently working on the engineering processes of all these new collections. How we're going to show them, it's going to be starting on our showrooms, which in Europe, they are already slowly opening. The New York showroom will open also within the next couple of weeks. So that's how we are going to start presenting them to whoever feels comfortable coming into the showrooms. And then we still have to decide whether we're going to be able to exhibit in any of the shows towards the end of the year, BDNY here in New York. That's how and then digitally, we are very lucky to have a very supportive marketing team that creates great image and great videos, and that's how we can have our colleagues in Barcelona just show us what the actual products are and make videos, and that's what we share with the designers community. And that's, at the end of the day, also designers don't really have always time to come to the showroom, or like we not always are capable to take everybody to our Barcelona factory. So it's all digital. And currently, I mean, everybody is working, or a lot of people are working digitally. So that's how we plan on doing it.
Yeah, and it's definitely a different approach because there's not this big Euroluce effect where like everyone goes to Milan and sees the product. So I think for us in the US, it will be maybe we'll have to manage expectations a little less, because when people go to Milan, they come back and they want to specify the product. And we always have this sort of year of development before we can actually sell the product. So maybe for us, it will be sort of a new experience where we're able to present the product closer to launch. And so maybe that will be a different way of approaching things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're all learning and adjusting to a new digital world. Is any of the design work done in-house, or do you always collaborate with outside designers?
50% of the designs of the collections are in-house. We have a long-standing core in-house design team that has been working on the designs. Like Joan Gaspar being the product director for us, he represents and he sees very clearly what the values of Marset are and what is it that we want to achieve. And then we both, Joan Gaspar, Javier Marset, and the design team is continuously open to receiving ideas from industrial designers, because we love the diversity. And if you actually look at the Marset collection, it's very colorful, very diverse, but everything holds a specific aesthetic that represents the values of the brand.
That's great. You mentioned glass can be heavy. What else do designers need to consider when designing glass lighting specifically?
Well, I think the idea is to see how the light will shine through the glass. And actually, we actually played with this with our Vatra collection, which is just above Diane's head and just behind her. So here is a collection where we use a glass shade, actually not the way you would traditionally use it. So usually you have the light source inside the shade and the light shines through the glass. Here we have this globe that has at the bottom of it a filter that only lets about 10% of the light shine through it. And then all the rest of the light is then redirected downwards. So I think when you're working with glass, you want to see, okay, how is my product gonna be different than what is out there? Like, is it design? Is it the function of the glass? Because at the end of the day, there are so many manufacturers, and so you want your product to stand out. And I think that's something to have in mind. And then also more practical things in terms of, can it be transported? Will it arrive intact? How easy is it to install? Is it too heavy? So but this is where the manufacturer can help you, because we have the experience and we've done a lot of those. So that's, I think, and Danny can add to this, but I think when you're designing a product, first you shouldn't come up with constraints. You should just come up with the idea and just be out there and open to ideas, because that's how you'll be your most creative.
I agree 100%, and that's how Marset works. We let the designer create, and then we will offer the engineering support.
Totally makes sense. What type of details are taken into consideration to make a light suitable for outdoor use versus indoor use?
So I think the main worry when you talk about electrical is when you are outdoors, you're exposed to the elements. That means rain, but it's also just the moisture in the air. I'm up here on Cape Cod, north of like 5 minutes from the sea, and every night there's so much moisture in the air that if the electrical components of your fixture are not protected, some elements might rust, some elements might stop functioning because they're not meant to be in such a humid environment. Same goes for fixtures in your bathroom. So it's something you always have to think is like, how can I protect the integrity of the lighting source so that it does not wear out faster than it would. And we have a few collections that are, for instance, the Soho or the Haima, where we offer both indoor and outdoor options. And the outdoor version always has to be completely sealed. So that's something to think about. And then you also have different degrees of outdoorness, if you may. There's a rating called IP rating that allows you to judge what type of outdoor conditions your fixture would withstand. So some of it is just, it can be outdoors, but it needs to be protected from the rain. Others, they can be left out. But one thing I always recommend is if you live in a place that has really extreme weather, whether it's extreme heat or tons of snow, it's always best to bring your fixtures indoors if you can in those conditions. They'll last longer.
Definitely. Well, sadly, we are out of time for today. We haven't been able to make it through all of the questions, but I do have one last final question for each of you. If there are any last words of advice that you'd like to give the students who are listening today.
Continue being creative. Companies like Marset will always be there to just continue looking for innovation. Don't let your design and your ideas just go away because you think there's not going to be nobody to support them and to bring them to life. I kind of like have the feeling that we keep living in a very uniform life, and we need creative people. So that would be my advice. I personally love when the industrial designers we collaborate with have the opportunity to talk with us, because both Clement, myself, and all the sales team at Marset, we are spreading the word about a product. We're like telling people, use this in your products because this is going to bring so much into your projects. But at the same time, I love to have that conversation with the designer to say, okay, what is it that motivated you to bring that product to life? What was the design process? And I love that. You know, I wish I was a little bit more creative. I'm not, so please be very creative and reach out to Marset anytime if you have great ideas. Yeah, and I would say just be true to who you are and take your inspiration from your environment. I think it's where you'll be best and truest to what you stand for, and also just educate yourself. Don't be shy. Just knock on doors of manufacturers, and if you're visiting an area where there's a factory, maybe just reach out to see if you can get a tour, because you'll get a better sense of how the products are made and what the people stand for. And I think it's also something, there's so much choice out there that it's always nicer to go and specify products that you believe in, and as opposed to things that are just out there. So just stick to your values.
That's great advice. Thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today and for this incredibly insightful presentation. We really appreciate it. Students, thank you so much for joining today. If you want to learn more about Marset, you can visit marset.com or their Instagram at Marset BCN. If you'd like to learn more about Be Original Americas, you can visit beoriginalamerica's.com or our Instagram, Be Original USA. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Alisa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.